Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar focused on Chamber's strategies around upskilling adult learners. My name is Christy Taylor. I'm the Senior Director for Employer Engagement for the Chamber's Talented team, and I'm here with my colleague Bester, who will introduce himself as well.
Hello, good morning. My name is Bester Waters. I'm the manager of adult degree completion here with Detroit Reconnect. So happy to have you here today.
Today, we're going to talk about some strategies here at the Detroit Chamber focused on supporting adult learners, both from the student-facing perspective, but also ways that employers can play an active role in supporting their adults and helping them access more education opportunities that allow them to advance in their careers to meet our employers' talent needs, which we know is always a challenge. I see people introducing themselves in the chat. Please feel free to share who you are when you log in. And just know that we'll be pausing throughout to answer questions. So if questions do come up as we are going through these slides, drop them in the chat and we'll make sure that we address them as we go along. Just some context for those of you who are not familiar with our work here at the Chamber. We are the largest business organization in Michigan, and we have one of the largest education and talent portfolios, not only in the state, but really in the country. We're a large chamber, and we have made a large investment in education and talent. And we have done that because we know that talent really drives economic development and economic prosperity. And there's a real business imperative for addressing some of the talent challenges that we see here in our region. We have a large budget supporting our talent initiatives, and you can see on the screen some of the programs that we run focused on education and talent. We support students coming out of high school and moving into a college or credential program, sort of those traditional age students on that traditional path. But you'll hear from Bester later that only focusing on that audience isn't enough. We also need to look at the adults in our region who just need some more education to get more access to opportunities. So the programs you see here on the screen really represent the range of that portfolio and all of those different populations that we serve. Our work is really business driven and business led. So we have two sort of advisory bodies that support our talented work. The first is a CEO Talent Council that is made up of over 20 C-suite leaders and chaired by Peter Quigley, the CEO of Kelly. And this group really advises on our talent strategy and makes sure that everything we do is rooted in what businesses need and what businesses are looking for in terms of talent support. So business guided, we think that's very important. We also have a leadership council that drives our collective impact work, and that leadership council is governed by co-chairs representing both business and higher education. Our work is really focused on building those bridges across sectors and increasing collaboration between education and industry. And so this leadership council is co-chaired by people representing both of those sectors, which again, we think is really important to the collaborative nature of our work. I said we have a large education and talent portfolio, which comes with a large staff. So just want to give you a sense of how we are organized as a talented team. We have 4 departments that really focus on different stages of the talent pipeline. Our Detroit Drives Degrees initiative is really focused on barrier mitigation and systems change. So how do we make our education and workforce systems more friendly and accessible for learners? Bester's part of that team, but you'll see that our teams work very collaboratively across departments. We have an employer engagement team that I lead, which is really focused on helping employers play a more active role in supporting talent development. Rather than waiting for good people to come to them when they finish their education, we want employers to be active participants in our education process and make sure that our students are supported throughout their education and building that network with employers. We have a data department that helps us ensure that we are tracking our impact. And then we administered the Detroit Promise Scholarship, which provides a tuition-free path to college for students who graduate from the city of Detroit. So that's our larger talented team. Today, we're really going to focus on the teams who support adult learners and who support employers looking to advance their adults through education. So I mentioned my team focuses on employer engagement. My work really helps employers understand how they can invest in their existing workers through upskilling, apprenticeship, tuition assistance to really help the adults who already work for them take that next step and get the skills and training they need to grow their careers and hopefully stay within a company. So I'm Christy, you met me. Aaron on my team is also very engaged in our adult learner focus, but the real work happens through Detroit Reconnect and through Vester's team. So I'll let him introduce himself and talk a bit more about the program and why we think it's so important to focus on supporting adults.
Thank you so much, Christy. Again, my name is Vester Waters, and I'm the manager of Adult Degree Completion. I oversee the program, really analyzing some of our metrics around what adults are interested in pursuing, ways that we can connect them to careers that really provide a livable wage. That's super important. And then also just getting in front of them. So, really, you play a critical piece when we're talking about the employers because a lot of the adults are working. So that is one of the ways that I'm able to intersect with my population of adults is catching them at work. So here is my team. We have Courtney Holland, who's a success coach. We do meet individually with each person to assess where they are educationally, what their career goals are, and then lining out that pathway for them to achieve that goal. And we also have Susan Hooks Brown, who's one of our ambassadors who works within the community, along with Jonathan, who is a shared person with the Detroit Promise. We really lean into a multi generational approach with our adults. So, a large majority of our adults are also parents. So, sometimes we're at fairs and we might see someone and they're interested in opportunities for their children, but we also want them to know that it's never too late for you. So really leaning into that multi-generational approach and getting adults to understand that in addition to your child, you can also achieve your goals as well. So I want to begin by kind of outlining the problem here. With Michigan's declining population, it means that fewer students are entering the talent pipeline. We are not getting new talent. So it's really critical to invest in the Detroit region's existing talent, and that being the working age adults employed at our local companies. Currently, about half of the adult population in the region have a post high school credential, while 70% of all Michigan jobs will require it by 2031. And just under 500,000 working age adults in the region occurred some college credits, but stopped out before earning an actual credential or a degree. Thousands of disconnected adults have expressed interest in earning a degree or credential that would allow them to fill high demand roles at companies in the region. So, again, you play a really critical role. I want to talk a little bit about the work at Detroit Reconnect. So again, we do work with adults ages 25 or older, returning to college or attending for the first time. We do work in collaboration with post-secondary institutions where we provide free institution neutral navigation. So again, laying out that pathway. Sometimes people are interested in certificate programs. Maybe they're interested in a degree. Maybe they need a 4-year degree to actually get where they're going. So really creating that pipeline to various types of institutions. To date, we've trained over 135 community ambassadors to act as champions for education after high school. And since the launch of the Regional Debt Forgiveness Compact, approximately 1,500 students across 4 institutions have re-enrolled into college. So that's super awesome. Also, we have 380 students currently enrolled, 356 completing admission applications, and we're doing outreach to about 2.8 thousand to confirm their enrollment status. For you, we provide custom solutions and capacity for employers looking to invest in education initiatives for their workforce. Here, I wanted to lay out just some of the industries that our adults are interested in. So you can definitely see business, this would be business administration, business management, also education, social services, and a large group are interested in healthcare. That might be nursing, surgical tech, things of that sort. So just wanted to kind of paint a picture of some of the areas that we are seeing interest in from our adults. And again, this number is continually growing, but I think it paints a good picture as far as getting opportunities in front of our population of students. I also want to talk a bit about Michigan Reconnect. So, Michigan Reconnect is our largest feeder program. We often joke that Detroit Reconnect did come before Michigan Reconnect. And so we do have a really close relationship with them. This is a last dollar scholarship program that pays for Michiganders to attend their in district community college tuition free. If they're out of district, it offers a large tuition discount. So this is a great opportunity for adults. It provides cost saving opportunities to employers who typically provide tuition assistance or for employees seeking an associate degree. Also wanted to list the eligibility requirements. So at least 25 years of age when you apply. You must be a Michigan resident for at least a year, and you will also need a high school diploma or equivalent. And then in my next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we differ, but this is one way. You do need that high school diploma to qualify for Michigan Reconnect, and we saw that need. So we do also work with adults who maybe haven't completed high school, who want to go to college. They stay in our database. Once they complete their GED, we're able to circle back with them and then have that conversation about college. And then lastly, they need to have not earned an associate or a bachelor's degree to qualify for Michigan Reconnect. All right, so here's a little bit of how we differ from Michigan Reconnect. So Detroit Reconnect does not provide funds directly to students. We support with any post-secondary plan, whether that's skill trade, 4-year, or community college. We are metro focused, so it is Detroit Reconnect, but we do serve the surrounding counties as well. We work with Oakland 80, and then we also work with Macomb County as well. We are housed at the Detroit Regional Chamber, and we also have strategic partnerships with community based organizations and wraparound services. So, again, and kind of going through that was some of the things that we saw were the different barriers that the adults are facing as they are even interested in going back to school. Michigan Reconnect does provide funds directly to students. They are associate degree or short term credentials only. This program is statewide and they are housed in Miley, which is in Lansing, and they provide support through their navigators. Also, want to talk a little bit about enrollment days. So, as I mentioned, Michigan Reconnect is our largest feeder, and we want to set up a time to do on site events to help employees access scholarships, financial aid, wraparound service, and college enrollment support to begin their educational journey.
Just to add to this, we heard some feedback that employers didn't have a good understanding of Michigan Reconnect and the benefits that it could provide. Obviously, this is directly beneficial to employees and something that we want you to promote to your workers. Though, especially those in more entry level frontline roles who don't already have that degree or credential, this is a great opportunity for them to take that next step and further their education. But this also provides cost saving for you. A lot of our companies have tuition assistance programs, they offer education benefits. This is a state scholarship that covers an associate degree at no cost to employers. So if you do offer tuition assistance, you can make sure those first 2 years are covered by the state and then kick in to cover maybe a bachelor's degree or another certificate or credential. So we really want you to leverage this resource and take advantage of this opportunity. And we've seen some success with companies who partner with the state to promote the scholarship on site. So you see on the right-hand side of your screen a flyer that has Delta Airlines represented. So back in the summer, Delta, the Chamber and Michigan Reconnect partnered to host an enrollment day on site at Delta's campus. So they booked a big room. They invited their employees to come, and all day long, Michigan Reconnect and Detroit Reconnect had staff on site to help people apply for the scholarship. So people during the workday could stop in on their break, stop in at lunch, and get help, right? If people, were interested in taking that next step, they could sit down with someone, apply for the scholarship, learn about their financial aid options, understand other supports that were available to them. and just have a conversation about the right training program for that employee. Huge success. I think we had well over 100, if not 200 employees come through and participate. And really, this happened at no cost to Delta, right? Because they booked the space, they maybe fed people, but employees are learning about this scholarship to help them advance that Delta doesn't necessarily have to cover through tuition assistance. So we want to do more of these. I don't know if anyone on here is from the MyLeap 60 by 30 office, but we know the state wants to partner with more employers to do these types of events. We want to help make those connections. And so if there are people on the call who want to host one of these, let us know. We can make that happen. I also want to say, Delta is a big company. A lot of times it's easy for bigger employers who have HR or workforce departments to do these types of things, but we're also open to working with smaller companies. We're exploring how to do this sort of consortium based. So maybe there are 10 small companies who each have 5 or 10 employees who could benefit from this. Can we get together and try to pool resources to host one of these for a group of smaller companies to try to do some of this work at scale? So we're very flexible, very innovative, and open to partnering. But I think this is a really good practical example of how the chamber and the state and our business partners can come together and provide some resources for employees. So some more context on that.
Love that. Love that. Awesome. Also want to talk a bit about our Reconnect cafes, ambassadors, and then exposure. So providing support for employees looking to gain new skills and credentials or adults looking to change careers. So providing on-site tabling or virtual one-on-one sessions to coach, help employees access scholarships, again, financial aid, and choose the best post-secondary program for them. Also leaning into those community-based organizations, those wraparound services to help remove barriers for adults, parents. Some of these are also caregivers for maybe their parents. So really helping to remove some of those barriers to make college more attainable for them. Also training programs for staff who are interested in serving as Reconnect ambassadors to encourage and champion post-secondary education for their colleagues. One huge thing that we have seen as it relates to our adults is the community. That experience on campus is very different for them. So they need a community of people who actually understand what they're dealing with in their lives and that experience. And so having that community right there through the employer is very important. And then lastly, exposure opportunities to thousands of adults. I'm looking to use post-high school education to enter a new career. As I mentioned in the previous slide, we are not netting new talent. So really investing in those adults who have interest in entering a specific field, but just need that guidance, just need that support. So really supporting them in their pursuit of a new career as well.
And I think we do a lot of career exposure and, work-based learning, those types of things for our younger students, right? Like it's very natural to host a career exposure event for high school seniors. It's very natural to host an internship fair for college students. But we know that we have thousands of adults who want to take that next step, but just don't understand the landscape and the jobs that are out there. And so we're encouraging you to think about this audience and work with us to do that type of career exposure for our adult learners, just like we do for our younger students. We think that's really important. So before we talk about some of the tools and resources that the chamber provides, let's just pause. I don't see any questions in the chat, but if questions or thoughts have come up so far during the presentation, please drop those in and we'll answer them. And we'll also pause at the end, but just want to encourage you to ask questions as we go. All right, so let's talk about, Vester did a really good job talking about the adult population that exists here in the region and some of the supports and resources that he provides directly to those learners. But I also know that employers need resources and supports to better serve this population from an education perspective. And so I want to talk about some of the resources that we provide at the chamber to our business partners who want to do more in this space. So the first thing I'll talk about is our Workforce Success Toolkit. This is a free resource. It lives on our website. We contracted with somebody named John Kaplan, who was the former Chief Learning Officer at Discover Financial Services, and really is the pioneer and sort of the best practice when it comes to employer-led education benefits. The program he built at Discover has been studied because it really had such a strong impact on the company and on learners. And the data that they pulled showed that for every dollar they spent on education benefits and tuition assistance, they got back almost $2 in return on investment. So when you think about this work, it's the right thing to do. It's good to invest in people, but it also really does impact a company's bottom line. It's expensive to recruit. It's expensive to train and onboard. We know that these types of programs increase retention at companies. They keep people longer. They get them more engaged, which ultimately results in cost savings. So we worked with John Kaplan to write this toolkit and sort of take the learnings that he came up with at Discover and help us write a guide for our employers who are looking to do similar work. So the toolkit focuses on 3 key areas. The first is tuition assistance. So a lot of companies have tuition assistance programs, but they are woefully underutilized. Very few employees are actually taking advantage of tuition assistance benefits for a variety of reasons. One of the most simple ones is that they just don't know that the benefit exists. We know companies have these policies, they have these benefits available. They assume that people know that these benefits are available, but we've done some research and really found that a lot of employees aren't actually aware of these benefits. So the toolkit includes a marketing plan, some sample like staff meeting scripts, email templates that you can send out, recommendations for how to include this in interviews, onboarding, that type of thing. But really focusing on building awareness of tuition assistance programs. For companies who don't have a program, we have sample policies, templates and resources from other companies who have these programs. But we know that investing in workers, it keeps them at your companies, it keeps them engaged, and it does pay off. So that's the first area of focus, is building those tuition assistance programs and policies. Second, we have a section focused on work-based learning. So not just internships, but how to grow apprenticeship programs, how to institute job shadows and mentorships to ensure that employees feel empowered and supported to access the benefits that are available to them. We know that it's not enough to just have something on paper, but we really need to ensure that people have the support and the services they need to access benefits. And we're also working with our higher ed partners on ways to be more flexible to support adult learners. A lot of times people who are working full-time struggle to attend class because classes are offered during the workday. So how can we really bring together our higher ed and industry partners to come up with flexible and adult-friendly scheduling and build a pathway that lets people take advantage of education? And work-based learning is a great way to do that. And then finally, we focus on building a learning culture. We all know that you don't stop learning when you get your credential. I think AI has taught us that in this moment. There are always new tools, new technologies, and we need to really empower people to keep learning and to build that curiosity and have the space that they need to always be gaining new skills, and that we as employers are celebrating that and really uplifting learning as a value at our companies. So we focus on that learning culture as well. There's a link on the slide to the toolkit. We encourage you to take a look. Obviously, it's hard to sort of look at a document online and understand exactly what steps you need to take. So we also have staff on hand who can consult with you and who are ready to help you talk through this if tuition assistance and these other benefits are something you'd like to explore in more detail. Any questions so far? Not yet? Okay. Another resource we provide is support with career pathways mapping. So we are really trying to understand at the Chamber what are the skills and credentials that will really set our learners up for success on the job market and set our companies up for success when it comes to recruiting talent that have the skills that employers need. So we have gone through a process over the last several years to really understand those high demand, high wage jobs and the credentials that lead to those jobs. And we've also tried to understand how somebody can efficiently move along a career pathway. We know that people don't take a linear path into a job or career, right? There are starts and stops. Life happens. Maybe you exit high school and you work for several years and then decide that you want to continue your education. Maybe you start with a short-term credential and it takes a few years before you want to take that next step. So we've built these pathways maps to help learners really understand the education journey that they need to take to access these high demand jobs. But we also know these pathways maps can be valuable for employers. We've seen success when companies really take the time to understand what career progression looks like for their workers. We're not always proactive about talent development, about succession planning, about mapping out growth opportunities at a company. And we have seen companies really decide, like, we're gonna map out pathways. We're going to really show new hires how they can progress at a company, the education required to do that progression, and how somebody can continue to move and grow. That alone shows investment in workers, that improves retention and improves loyalty. So we've created these pathways maps knowing that not every company we work with has the time or capacity or resources to do this on their own. So we've focused on 6 occupations. You can see them here on the screen. And we've developed pathways maps based on our regional labor market and really regionalized and localized to our training institutions. So the pathways maps show what institutions offer the credentials that we're featuring, where are transfer agreements in place so that if somebody wants to move from a certificate to a 2-year program, their credits are recognized. So we're doing a lot to help learners understand how they can progress, but we also want you to use these and have conversations with your leaders about what progression looks like within your company. We provide a resource called Bridging the Talent Gap in partnership with a national organization called CALE, the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning. They do some great work, and one of the tools they offer is a survey that employers can use to understand their workers' education goals and barriers. So I know that, we survey people probably more than we should and more that people have the energy for, but we have found this to be a really impactful tool that a company can use as they start on this upskilling journey. So the idea is CALE works with us. If a company wants to do this, we have an onboarding call. We understand the demographics at your company, and then we create a survey that is really meant to assess what is the current education level of your workers. What would they like to get a bachelor's degree? Would they like to get an associate degree? What next step would they like to take? What are their aspirations? And what barriers have prevented them from reaching those aspirations? We also survey people on their knowledge of a company's education benefits. So I talked about this earlier. A lot of companies think that their benefits are very well known, but when survey results come back, we find that very few people are aware of the range of benefits. So this just is really good baseline information for an employer who wants to figure out a strategy to really promote that employer-led education. So we survey employees. The survey is very accessible, mobile friendly, easy to take, takes fewer than 15 minutes, and allows employees to sort of share where they are on their education journey and where they'd like to go. The survey is anonymous, but there are options for the respondents to share their contact information if they want to get connected to somebody like Vester or his team to provide that navigation service. So the chamber has capacity to help people who raise their hand and ask for help, but the employer can provide this as a benefit, and then the chamber partners to deliver some of that navigation if that's of interest. The national perspective is really valuable. So CALE institutes this survey across the country. So a company who takes the survey can see how they stack up nationally on some of their education strategies, and it really provides some good benchmarking. And then Cal provides a custom dashboard and report with recommendations for how a company can improve its upskilling and adult learner support. So it's a bit of a lift, right? It's never easy to do a massive survey campaign, but we try to do most of the work for you. The survey is built. It's just a matter of customizing it with your sort of naming conventions. We provide a messaging toolkit. So sample flyers that you can hang in break rooms, sample email scripts, scripts for supervisors to share at staff meetings to encourage people to take the survey. So we really try to make it easy, but this is something we recommend for companies who have a large portion of workers who don't already have that degree and credential, who you want to start investing in. Oh, it sounds like there's a question. So,
Just to share
okay.
slides. Just to
Oh,
share
yes,
slides.
we will, following the webinar, somebody asked if we will be sending this presentation out. Yes, so this is being recorded, so we'll make sure that a follow-up email goes out to our attendees that includes the recording and also the slide deck and our contact information. So yes, good question. We'll make sure that you get all of this. We also have used some of the data that we've gathered and some of our employer relationships to create learning communities and sector-based partnerships. This is big work, it's complex work, and we have found success when we really narrow in on one industry or one sector and try to figure out how to address some of these talent needs from a sector perspective. So we're doing a lot right now in healthcare. We convene a collaborative made up of several employers, higher ed institutions, K-12 partners, and community organizations who are working together to address some of the very drastic talent shortages that we're seeing in healthcare. The Chamber has an initiative under its umbrella called Mish Auto, which is an industry association for the auto and mobility industry. They are very focused on talent and developing the high-tech talent pipeline. And so we convene employers and education partners around improving the talent pool in the mobility industry. And then we also convene the Michigan Apprentice Network, which is really focused on collaboration between employers and skilling partners to promote apprenticeship as a talent strategy and an equitable way to make sure that people do get the skills and training they need to advance in the workforce. So if you are hearing all of this and you're wondering, like, am I a good fit to work with the Chamber? I want to share a bit more about our audience. So we work with all companies. We have people in our network who are very high tech, not hurting for talent, have a lot of highly skilled, highly degreed workers. There's a role for those companies, right? We want to promote the good jobs that exist in our region. We really want to sell Michigan as a place to live and work in an innovative high-tech field. And so, like, we don't really turn employers away. We want to partner with our businesses across the region. But for this work in particular, we have found the most success with companies who have a significant number of workers who don't already have that degree or credential. We're really focused on creating pathways through education. And so when you think about maybe healthcare, who has a lot of workers who are in food service, environmental service, people who are a great fit at that health system, but who could benefit from more education to help them get that next stage credential that pays a bit more and that has more upward mobility. And so companies like that, call centers, hospitality companies, casinos, right? Where are those companies that have those workers who are in entry-level roles that don't require a degree? How can we get them connected to a degree program here in the state so that they can take that next step? Often large companies work with us on these strategies because they have HR departments and they have staff who think about this all the time. And that's typically who we've seen success with. But as I said earlier, we also want to work with smaller and mid-sized companies who maybe don't have the internal capacity to do some of this. And we can get creative. Industry-based consortium, we can figure out an approach that works for any size company. So if this sounds interesting to you, but you don't have an HR lead who's focusing on talent, that's okay. Reach out. We'll figure out a strategy that works for you. Really, the only criteria is that you're interested in improving your talent outcomes and you're willing to invest the time and the resources to do that. We won't turn you away. If you want to do this work, if you want to invest in your workers, we want to work with you. We also really try to facilitate partnerships. We talked a lot about the partnership that we have with the Michigan Office of 60 by 30 to promote Michigan Reconnect. So we can sort of be that intermediary and make sure that you're connected to the other partners in the region who are doing this work. I also want to emphasize we take a very data-driven approach to our work. And recently the Chamber worked with Gallup to do a survey of Detroit residents, both within the city and the region of Detroit, to respond directly to some of the issues that we are trying to address as a chamber. One of the things we asked people about was education and job opportunities and how they felt about the opportunities available to them in the region. What we found is that the more education somebody had, the more satisfied they were with the conditions available to them where they lived, and the less likely they were to face unemployment. And so we know that there is a direct benefit between education attainment and somebody's economic opportunity and mobility, and frankly, just happiness and satisfaction where they live. And so that survey gave us a lot of tools and a lot of information to build strategies that responded directly to the things that our residents were saying. And so a lot of what you're seeing today ties into that and is a direct response to what we've heard from our communities about the opportunities that they have and the opportunities that they'd like. We do these webinars often. You may have been on others. We had a webinar last month focused on mentorship. So I want to share with you the next webinar in this series, which is sort of a part 2 to the discussion we had today. We really focused on the Chamber's work and Detroit Reconnect during this webinar and tried to make the case about why adults are an important talent pool to tap into. Next month, we're going to talk about some practical resources here in our region for adult learners and the people who are interested in supporting adult learners. So we're excited for that conversation. A registration link will be coming out soon, but wanted to just give you this date so you could hold it on your calendar. We'll be talking more about this next month. If you want to get involved, if this was interesting to you and you want to learn more or share more about the opportunities you have for adults, there's a QR code on your screen. This will allow you to do 2 things. One, if you have an opportunity that you want to share, maybe you have a career fair coming up, maybe you are interested in doing some exposure work for our adults, you can share that via the QR form. If you don't have opportunities, but you just want to learn more, you can also fill that out, share your contact information, and we'll connect with you to schedule some time to figure out how we can work together. You also have contact info on the screen for Vester and myself. We are very available and responsive, so please don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to talk more about this. So that's what we have for you. I'll pause and see if there are questions. Oh, it looks like Vester dropped a lot of links in the chat to these resources. Thank you, Vester. I see a question about, Jacqueline, I see you're asking about where we house some of this data. I think I was talking when you said that question. So if you could just add to the chat what data in particular you're referring to, let me know and I can expand on that. And we'll pause for a second and see if other questions come through the chat. Vester, anything else you want to add while we're waiting?
No, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Again, definitely just want to assess like what the needs are, any supports that are offered, and really just how we can support. When I worked in the K-12 space, like the schools were like the primary place that I could interact with potential students and like get that interest. But now with adults, it's like the workplace is going to be that central location. So really, the employers play like a critical role in this reaching the adults. Just one question about the slides.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, we will, following the webinar, you will receive an email recapping today's presentation. It will include a link to the recording, and it will include the slide deck as well. So, and I think maybe some of the links that Vester dropped in the chat, we can make sure those are available to you too, so you can quickly find some of the information we talked about today. So Jacqueline is asking about where we house the data focused on career pathways. So we did a very large project to look at the 900 occupations here in the region and then apply some filters to those occupations based on wage growth and demand. And that's how we sort of identified how we classified good jobs. So of those 900 occupations, how many of them met those three sort of thresholds? And then that lowered our list drastically. And then we took that list of occupations and mapped those to the education institutions who offered training to get those jobs. Jacqueline, that information I can share with you. We don't list it publicly because it's kind of a lot, but I have that data if you're interested in talking about it. The pathways maps themselves are public, free, available on our website. I can put a link in the chat so you can find those easily, but we have those available to use for those 6 occupations that I talked about. So I'll make sure you get access to those. We've also done some work focused on the mobility labor market. We collaborated with Lightcast a few years ago to really do an assessment of the mobility labor market and where it was heading. And so we've done some industry specific data analysis too. So I'm happy to share that as well.
Is it the Google Drive?
No, I have it up. I don't see other questions. We'll give it just maybe 2 more minutes to see if anybody is typing, and then we can wrap up. While we're waiting for additional questions, I will say, I mentioned we are doing these webinars on an ongoing basis, and our goal is really to spotlight good work that's happening in the region. Today was a bit unique because it was just Vester and me talking about a chamber program, but typically what we do is feature an employer, a community organization, maybe a higher ed institution, but we try to have a cross-sector group come on and talk about a topic that's working well. We've had, like I said, we had a mentorship webinar last month. We've had webinars focused on supporting veterans as a talent pool. We'd like to do more of these. So if you have a really good program that you want to spotlight, if you're an employer who has figured out something that's working very well from a talent perspective, we would like to tell your story. So please reach out and we can set this up. We also try to make these very easy. Really, we just want you to show up and talk about your good work, and we try to do the rest for you. So that's another ask for everybody. All right, I don't see any additional questions, so I think we will wrap up. You have our contact info on the screen. Please be in touch if you think of anything or want to learn more about what we talked about today. An email will go out following this presentation with the deck and the recording. So we'll make sure to get you those materials. We do have one more question. So Sonia has asked about our reach to different employers representing different sectors, and if there are times you connect them to community-based and workforce orgs. Yes, I think our healthcare work is the best example of this. We know, again, simply putting this information in front of people is not enough to get them to take action, right? We know that people have a lot of barriers that are preventing them from furthering their education. We know that childcare is a challenge. We know that transportation can be difficult. We know that right now course offerings don't always align with a work day. And so there are all of these factors at play that are preventing people who want more education from actually accessing those opportunities. So Vester, I'll let Vester talk more about this because I think Vester does a really good job connecting people to the community organizations, providing those supports. We're not a huge team, so we can't do that deep sort of wraparound support that people need, but we're very good at referring that out and partnering with other organizations who do that.
Absolutely. And even on our website, I did drop the links to both the Reconnect website and the employer engagement website as well. But on ours, we have a collaboration link. So community organizations are able to meet with us. If they have services that are relevant to our population, that could be food insecurity, that could be housing, that could be transportation. We're able to include that in our database so that then if we see that need, we're able to ensure that adults are aware of those opportunities. So always growing, always looking for new organizations to connect adults to different services as well. So yes.
Thanks, Sonia. All right, I think that's all our questions. So we will wrap up. You'll hear from us shortly with follow-up materials, but thank you for spending an hour with us. We will let you get to your lunch and excited to further this conversation with anyone interested. Have a great day.